If you like this channel and what I do here, please help to support my work by checking out one of my books, available from Lulu Publishing and Amazon.com. Thank you. Hiya folks, Carl Jez here from Electric Media Madness, joined by Dan Ryan again for Star Trek Discovery. How
yes! Discovery!
Oh, you're
yes!
so excited.
Yes!
You need to contain. You need
sorry,
to contain
I'm
this. You need more calming drugs for when you watch Star Trek Discovery, because you know when you get too excited, what happens.
It makes me way too excited. My actual favourite show. It's so cool! There's a new episode for my favourite show. Yes!
Episode 2, I mean, we, not knowing really where this show is going to go, because last week was just the Mikey Spock show.
All hail.
All hail the Queen, yeah. This week, she wasn't in it, apart from the last 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, this week is all about what happened to the crew of Discovery. So do you want to jump in there?
You
probably paid more attention to it than I did.
It's so epic, right? At the start of the episode, Discovery comes out of the wormhole. He's like, oh shit, there's rocks everywhere! There's rocks everywhere! And then it smashes through. And it looks so cool!
No. I keep telling you, you must be calm. Don't get too excited. We've got a whole 45 minutes worth of episode yet to get through. You know? Calm.
So it smashes through the rock, right? And there's a planet there, and it's like, oh no, we can't control the ship, oh no! And then it crashes, it's like, boom! And then the Discovery intro starts playing, like, oh my god, what's happening?
In all seriousness, for a second, let's just calm things down a little bit, right? Did you notice that the theme of like crashing things? Because that was how the first episode opened, didn't it? Exactly the same thing. And no originality. Yeah. And you know. So then, Star Trek Discovery comes out of the wormhole and it crashes into so basically the story is that the ship's all they imply that it's all mangled up and it needs work doing. There doesn't seem to be an awful lot wrong with the ship, really. They keep saying about the technology that needs sorting out.
One wire that needs replacing and cleaning some brains off the floor.
Yeah.
And
the ship looked remarkably, because you mentioned that the ship looks remarkably clean, considering it's just been through that space battle at the end of season 2.
Discovery is the best ship in Starfleet, right? With the best crew in Starfleet, so they have the best cleaners in Starfleet.
Yeah. And we get a line to that effect actually in it as well, which I think that line was actually directed at reinforcing this idea that, oh yes, this is the best Star Trek and all this kind of thing, because a character asks Tilly about Discovery and says, how old is your starship? And she says, well, we would like to think of her as a classic. You know, it's like they're trying to say Star Trek Discovery is a classic.
Well, it is, of course. How are you saying it isn't?
I'll go on my record and say yes. No,
blasphemy.
It's not. So go on then. So they go looking for this part that they need to, and it's Saru and Tilly.
Yeah.
Go off to this mining colony, don't they?
And they
Take
go
it from there.
They go into. They're following some hooded gentlemen, because of course that doesn't look suspicious at all. And then they go into a cave that also looks extremely suspicious, and you wouldn't go into, following a hooded fellow.
No.
And then they appear in a
like a beaming sort of.
They beam into like a Western-styled bar.
Yeah, because it's really cliched. That it's got the saloon doors, the swinging doors on the front of it, metal ones, but it's got like a beaming portal thing just the other side of the swing doors. You know, it's you can tell that somebody was like, "Oh, this will look cool," and then
quite a big section of the episode they try and go for this like Western kind of feel for it in there, and it's weird. And,
which is again has been done to death in Star Trek. I mean, Enterprise did an entire Western episode. I seem to recall, and I don't know where in my brain it was, but I do seem to recall a bar that was very much like a Western sort of bar type thing. You could argue that Quarks is a little bit. I mean, Deep Space Nine was modelled on the frontier western town. There's a western episode from the original Star Trek series. There's a western holodeck episode from Next Generation. You know, so it's hardly original in science fiction, let alone in Star Trek. You know, so that theme of like the frontier town, because they're the miners as well, are they, that work there? And all that kind of thing, which takes us into a bit of a B plot, because there's this like villain gangster type bloke who keeps turning up and taking all their supplies away from them and like bullying them basically. But because somebody from the Federation has turned up, because the head of the miners like always hoped that somebody from Starfleet would eventually turn up and help them, they think that Saru and Tilly are there to help them, and they're not really. They just want the bit to
repair my shit.
Yeah. But then Giorgio turns up and does her kung fu grip, king kick-ass lady, snaps one's neck and creates another one, and blah blah blah. Takes care of them all pretty much. I think Saru uses his gill things with his poison spikes. He
shoots one person,
but it's mainly Giorgio that takes care of it all. She thoroughly intimidates the bad man, and says, you know, you don't come back here ever. And
I thought that bit was a bit, but then when you think about it, she was like special forces, I suppose.
Yeah.
So it could,
Section 31, I suppose, but it's kind of that argument that a lot of YouTubers that have talked about Star Trek Discovery and Kurtzman Trek in general, this idea of like, if you know, it's basic science you've got here, basic biology, sorry. You've got a woman who's like 108, 110 pounds or whatever, soaking wet, you know, up against like 180 pound, 190 pound, you know, 6'3", you know, badass blokes. Like some of them henchmen were like that. But, and you know, I mean, she would break some bones.
Probably, yeah.
You know, just you know, by virtue of the fact of the way she's constructed, you know, and that size and that. But no, none of that happens. None of that happens. So
well, I suppose if it was to be any character, I suppose it would make the most sense.
I suppose in terms of training and sort of fighting skills.
She was also like a warrior in the
Mirror Universe.
So
but that's neither here nor there.
No, I suppose.
But they sort him out, and they make this deal with the miners and about dilithium and that, which is kind of a follow-on from the first episode, saying about the shortage of dilithium and that. The ship, meanwhile, has got this weird, it's a crap idea, parasitic snow that like grows over things and crushes it. It's like sentient snow, you know, so whatever that is, crushing the ship. But they get the ship up and running. They're trying to get out of the snow, but they can't break free. And then all of a sudden, this tractor beam grabs hold of Discovery.
And who is it? Who is it?
And it's the Queen! It's the Queen! It's old Mikey Spock. But the twist, you know, great writing.
She has been there a year already. And that's just...
So it's hardly like ripping off things like, I mean, Alias, which is the the JJ Brigade. I mean, they did a time jump. Battlestar Galactica did a time jump. You know, it's hardly original. You know, Fringe was another one that did a time jump, and JJ's lot all worked on that show as well. You know, so yeah, they're sort of leeching on their own past glories, I suppose. But we get some unintentionally hilarious moments, like when they crash the ship at the beginning. And then they all start clapping and cheering because they've crashed the ship.
It's not like they even landed it, they just crashed it.
I mean, presumably the reason why they're all clapping and cheering is because they didn't die. But why you'd want to clap and cheer over that, you know, it's like, not traumatised.
The first thing would be, is everyone alive? Did anyone die here?
Yeah. And then there was other things like... the way they were all basically crying and doing when Mikey Spock shows up at the end. They all looked like they were all about to burst into floods of tears, weren't they?
The thing that's weird there, and this is like a big complaint I have with this episode, like, okay, they come out the wormhole, like, it was like straight away. So the time that they'd seen Michael Burnham was probably like 12 hours.
I see what you're saying, yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, for her, you could understand.
For
why
her,
she'd
yeah.
be
I completely understand why she's like crying.
you know, yeah.
But for them, it
For
was
them,
like 12 hours.
It's not been that long since I've last seen her, has it?
Also,
you know?
the fact that it's been
it would be a bit like me starting crying when you showed up to record our next video after the last one we did. Yeah. I'm so pleased to see you. We're so glad you're back. I see what you get.
The time gap as well from the end of season 2 and season 3 for the Discovery crew is like an hour max, but they're all acting like very different except 4 characters.
Yeah, that's something that we talked about when we were watching it.
Yeah.
There's clearly something going on. We've got some ideas and theories on that. I mean, Tilly did say at one point that the sensors registered that everything was strange, but she thought the sensors were saying everything was strange. But then she says something to the effect of "we're odd and strange," meaning almost implying that something is going on.
Yeah.
And more so, I don't know if it's connected to that or whether it's something else, but we also had Kayla or whatever her name was, Kayla or whatever.
Implant lady.
Yeah,
can't remember her name.
Implant lady inside of her head, yeah. Acting very, very bizarre. And I called that straight away.
Yeah,
now, I'm going to make a prediction here. I don't know whether this is true or not, whether this is going to be the case. But it was only moments after the initial her acting strange that
you did say
that they established that it wasn't concussion, and I said the AI controlling her implant, or something like that. I mean, that's probably not going to be the case, but if I can call that and it turns out to be true, it kind of just shows how predictable their writing is on this show. You're right; they are all acting a bit weird. But we also talked whether there was a story idea for this. You tell them. Tell our viewers
my little prediction is like everyone except Saru, the doctor whose name I can't remember.
That's the
engineer as well. Stamets the engineer.
Mushroom Man, as I call him, because he came out of the mycelium.
And Giorgio.
And Giorgio.
All of those acted the same as before.
Yeah, they're consistent to the way their characters.
But everyone else, they're just being dicks, really.
They're weird, aren't they? They're really
just sort of bitching at each other.
I mean, in fairness, a lot of these characters on Discovery are one-note characters anyway. We've barely seen anything of their character anyway in the last 2 seasons. It's only all of a sudden now they've got a personality, they've got a character.
But they're all just...
But Tilly is a good example of that.
I think that...
Jet Reno, or whatever her name is, the one who's damaged her spine and can't stand up, the other engineer. Yeah. She's more than ever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's like, can't even bother to remember the name of a crew member, you know, and all that kind of thing. So, yeah.
But I think that they've just decided to write loads of them as dicks, and they're going to make them improve as people throughout the series. So by the end, it's like, oh look at the development they've made.
Yeah, there's so much.
But then they'll be
so
just
much more likable
where they were before.
They were, yeah. And it's like regressing the characters so that you can show there's a character development and arc improve, but they've actually just gone back to the point where we left them at the end.
It's quite clever because it'll work for a lot of people. I think a lot of people will fall for it.
Some people will. Yeah. I would hope that those people who understand Star Trek better and recognise what's going on with this show won't fall for it. But yeah, so I just wanted to just go through a few notes really here. Just some of these lines, like the wonderfulness and the togetherness of the crew. Saru saying we're all together, the applause and the cheering, all that kind of thing. There was almost a few F-bombs in there. Okay, what the with Tilly and things like that. Those kinds of things are par for the course now. I mentioned about Jet Reno not being bothered to remember a crew member's name. Characters acting very strange, out of character. Tilly saying we're odd and strange. We get a bit of hero worship for Tilly, bigging Tilly up when Saru says, "You are a wonderful first impression." You know, was she crying or something when he said it to her?
She started crying.
So she seemed to be doing a lot of that in this episode, didn't they? I'd already mentioned about the line where Tilly says we think of her as a classic, the ship, which is kind of some of the gruesome deaths, you know, the head snapping and all that kind of... The death of the miner as well from the bad guy. I mean, that was horrible, wasn't it? It was like, shot that weird sort of disruptor weapon at him, and it was about 10 or 15...
Torture guns.
Yeah,
torture guns.
Yeah. And then eventually they kill them. A couple of other little typically Kurtzman-esque type era Star Trek lines, like Georgia when she says, "What you call pain, I call foreplay." And, so, it's like typically sort of like yum yum. That was from the end of season 2 as well, all that kind of. Jet Reno, so she's asked about something. She goes, "Well, I don't know. I'm on drugs." Again, characters on being high as a second episode in a row. Yeah. We had loads of that in Picard as well, didn't we? And implications of that with Lower Decks as well. So that seems to be part of the course now, that everybody in Starfleet is high as a kite most of the time. I think if you want to talk about your other prediction that you...
My other prediction is kind of a bit related to an actual compliment for this episode. Last episode I had a sort of half compliment, but not really. I do have an actual compliment for this episode, and Saru was the most likeable one. He kept those Starfleet values, the Federation values.
I think it also has one of the big advantages is Doug Jones, because he's a great actor.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some good actors in this show, but it's the material that they're given and the characters that they've got to work with that causes the problems. But you're right, Saru tends to be more the traditional mould of a Starfleet officer, and a Starfleet character, Star Trek character. And I can't help but wonder, like you say, whether they need to get rid of that.
I think they'll kill him.
He's like the last vestiges of real Star Trek.
But he made this episode watchable for me. If he hadn't have been in this,
it improved.
I'd have hated this.
Yeah, I would say this episode was a slight improvement over the first one, but only in as much as it was Saru, that it was Doug Jones and the character Saru that gave it that little bit of an edge over the first one. I actually felt, and I said to you at the time, just prior to the bad guys using their torture guns on the miner, the lack of, at that point there, the lack of overt violence and eerness of the Star Trek universe now, as I put it. That's not a proper word, but the eerness. It just doesn't feel true to the mythology and the canon of Star Trek and the way Starfleet is. And, I mean, they've got the Get Out clause now because they're not. Starfleet doesn't exist. The Federation doesn't exist as such. But this probably felt like it was moving towards being the most Star Trek type episode of Star Trek Discovery of the whole series so far. I'm damning it with faint praise because that's not really much of a compliment, because it was only very slightly. And I mean, this is only like when you're talking 15 minutes into the episode, and as soon as the torture gun came out and then Giorgio was doing it, I was like, it was literally as I was about to say it to you. I was about to say it to you, and then I'm like, no, forget that now. So it's just been voided by the fact of what we've just seen, what's just happened.
I think, dare I say, I think Discovery is going in a better direction than it has at any point previously.
I can understand where you're coming from, why you might think that, but the problem I have is I don't like giving Kurtzman's lot any credit. And to me, this feels like a ploy.
Oh yeah, it probably is.
It's just purely just to address... But then I've always believed that in doing that, in trying to address what is wrong, what people are criticising it as being wrong with Star Trek now, they're actually, therefore, if they change anything, they're admitting that there was something wrong, and they don't like doing that, because then it's almost like saying, well, we're letting the people that are have these valid criticisms win, and we can't be seen to be wrong. You know, what we've created is this perfect, wonderful thing, and there's nothing wrong with it. How dare you criticise it? Yeah. And if you're seen to be openly changing things to address the concerns of people, legitimate concerns and legitimate criticisms, then you're therefore admitting that something was wrong with it.
That's true.
But by doing it in the way that you were talking about, it's kind of like they're correcting things, but not openly appearing to correct things.
Yeah.
Because I noticed that a bit with episode 1. It's almost like there was it didn't work for me, but it was almost like they were making attempts to suddenly make Michael Burnham more likeable.
Just give her better lines. She's a good actress.
Yeah.
Just give her. Just give her better lines.
Yeah. I think she's fundamentally she's lumbered with that character, And I don't think there's a lot you can do, short of her having amnesia and just forgetting everything that she's ever done in her life and just starting again from scratch. I don't think there's an awful lot you can do to make that character more, likeable and you know.
The only thing you'd be able to do is just completely change the character, and they won't do that.
And it is interesting how the way they did it last time was with drugs.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like changing her entire mental landscape through drug-induced behaviour. That proves the point that you have to do things like that. You have to fundamentally change your entire mental structure, makeup, to undermine everything that's come to make her more likeable. So,
well, the thing is, they can just sort of, if they wanted to, they could just do it now because she's been there a year, so they don't need to show any development.
That was going to be my one more prediction.
Yeah.
Was that I suspect now we're going to see somewhat different Michael Burnham. I don't think very different, because they're going to want to keep hold of their idea that this is the character created. She's the bestest ever, as Doomcock would say. She is. So they're not going to write that off, but they're going to make her a little bit warmer, a bit less I know it all kind of thing, and that kind.
I've seen
by virtue of the fact that she's been there for a year and been away from them.
I have seen a couple of interviews, and she says that her character does get a lot of progression in there. I don't know how much that is, but
it's lazy storytelling, because they don't have to show how she's changed. They might give you some flashbacks to the time when she was on board the ship with him in upcoming episodes before Discovery turned up, but I doubt it.
It really is a shame she doesn't give better stuff, because she's really passionate about being in this as an act, and just give her better lines.
It's an unfortunate thing. It's like Michelle Yeoh. I mean, she's a great actress. Like I said about Doug Jones, there have been over time some very good actors on this show, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's fundamentally the flaw with this show is the producers and the writers. That's the problem.
Yeah.
If you got rid of those people, you could actually still continue Star Trek Discovery and make something.
Keep the same cast actors, and it'd be fine.
You probably could make something passably good out of it. It will never be Star Trek like the Star Trek of old that but I think you could pull it out. You could do some limited damage control with it.
Yeah.
We've talked about changes in franchises and stuff like that. I suspect Star Trek is the one that still could be salvaged of all the ones that have been bashed and smashed and shattered.
Well, where this episode ended, it could be a reset, kind of, so they could correct it. They probably won't.
But again, it's that thing. I don't believe it can be done until you've got to get rid of all of those. You've got to get rid of all of those people. You've got to get rid of all of that have infected. The big deal that Kurtzman's secret hideout has got, by extension, the JJ. Bad Robot contract that he had, that was when it all started to go wrong. You've got to get. I think you need people who appreciate Star Trek, people who are fans of Star Trek, people who aren't politically grandstanding, that they haven't got an agenda to their show writing. And if they do, and they want to comment on things and talk about things, do it in subtle ways, like little morality plays, like that's how Star Trek's always done it. If you got people in like that, I don't think the people behind the scenes that are currently working on the show can do that. I think some can, but Kurtzman won't let them. Kurtzman and his little cabal core group of people, they won't let them.
Any script that's written that isn't by them,
they just
he rewrites.
They go in there and throw in all these cheap gimmicks and all this shit that and check out that character, and they just take apart because there has been occasions where there have been episodes in Discovery that could have potentially been really good episodes, but they were ruined by the baggage that Kurtzman has brought into it.
And that's probably the leftovers from the original.
I think it is, yeah. I also think the leftovers from what Brian Fuller had in the beginning when he was the showrunner originally, before Kurtzman came along and basically got him booted out, for want of a better way of putting it, allegedly. So but I think if you got them people out the way, you could salvage something of it. I don't think you'd ever be able to salvage it to the level of classic Star Trek shows from the past, but you could make it watchable and make the characters likeable and make the stories thought-provoking. But you'd have to get rid of those producers and the people, the showrunners, and a lot of the writers. For that to happen. Because I don't think they've completely mangled the canon yet. They're getting there. They're getting there. It's not like what they did to Doctor Who.
To be honest, I don't think it will get that bad. Well, there's no really way of doing it that bad. Because I don't think anyone is that clever to do it that bad.
Well, that's... I mean, of course, when we say that, we're inadvertently giving praise to somebody like Chris Chibnall with Doctor Who, saying that he's clever to have actually done that. I don't think he is. I think
he's very good at ruining things.
Yeah. Same with Ryan Johnson with, like, you know, it's basically just taking a sledgehammer to things. I don't quite feel that we're at the point of the sledgehammer yet. It came very close with Picard. But again, we'll have to see where. It's not some. It's like somebody who is like. It's like going back to your abusive ex-partner. So I don't think there's really much else to say at this point. We'll just leave it there and sort of watch this space and see what happens, see where the show goes. So shall we rate it?
We will. Yeah.
Go on then.
now you know I gave the last episode a really high rating of 2.5, but this episode was better, which means that I have to give it the cheeky rating of perhaps a cheeky 3.5.
Okay.
We're going up.
Yeah. I do think it's better than the first episode. Not much. I'm going to give it a 2.5.
See, we're going up.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2.5. There were some things about it, like we say about Saru and that, and it did feel, for the first time as long as I can remember. I mean, there wasn't one episode in season, if memory serves, the episode from episode 2 with season 2 with the Telosians and that, which because I'm a huge fan of the Cage, and I know it's not very popular with a lot of Star Trek, but I love that Cage story. And seeing the Telosians back and Pike and all that, so that, you know, so there have been moments where it's felt like Star Trek again, and it did feel a little bit until it all kind of just went nah. Yeah. Again with the torture gun and all the rest of it, and I just thought, oh, you know, no. Yeah, I'll stick with that for now. We'll watch the space and see where it goes. So, and with that, we'll just say thank you for watching. And if you did like this video, please remember to click that like button, share it about if you can, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And Dan and I will see you again very, very soon. Take care.
Auf Wiedersehen.